Start now. Okay. So yesterday, what we have understand is that how to use the sorter, aggregator, as well as a joiner transformation to convert. And whenever you have such kind of a transformations, you need to verify the appropriate properties and then modify the source qualifier query to validate the data. Today we'll talk about the very important transformation. So that is your lookup transformation. So lookup transformation is just like a querying of the data or a matching of the data based on the condition. Just like a joiner, how you provide the condition. Even for a lookup, you provide a condition, and based on the condition, it will match the data and it will return appropriate result to you. So lookup can be configured. It can be created. It can match the data on the relational table, or it can even match the data on a flat file. So to do that. So whenever they're matching on a relational table, they'll provide you in which database that lookup is present. Whenever they start creating on the flat file, they'll provide you the path when or where this is available. So it can be configured in two ways. One is in the connected mode and another is in the unconnected mode. So we'll see that how connected and unconnected mode works in using this. Connected and unconnected mode works by this. So basically we'll see the connected mode example in this. So first one is about the source table. Source table is basically we are using a invoice table, and the target we are going to load the data into ODS customer active. So this is also present in the target schema. This is in the SDBU schema. And in this example, the lookup is created on a relational table. That is your lookup is created on a customer table, which is also present in the SDBU schema. Present in the SDBU schema. So in using this. So now, what is the mapping which is loading the data into this? That is your m_ODS customer active. And we have a workflow which is loading the data into this. That is your WF_ODS customer active. So let's take a look at the mapping and the data mapping sheet. So it's basically, we are going to create a lookup based on the condition. And if you see the customer ID, customer name, customer contact, as well as a customer state, and every attributes of the customer is fetched from the customer table. And if you look at it, they've actually created a lookup for matching the data based on the customer ID, and they're bringing it all the input. So whenever they create a lookup in the data mapping sheet, they'll provide the query something like this, because it has to match the data based on this query. So let me show you a mapping, probably that makes that gives you a better idea how the lookup works and how the connected lookup looks like. So then it is easy to understand. If you go to our this one working folder, right click on it and click on open, and we have ODS_customer active. See, it's basically it is reading the data from the invoice table. They're reading the data from invoice table, and they're matching the data. Basically, they're passing the customer number and matching the data. So based on the customer number. So what is a condition that is used to match the data? So this is a condition. Customer ID is equal to customer number input. So that is how they're matching the data. And you have all the attributes. So if you see customer ID to discount rate, every attribute is derived from the customer. So it's like you know the customer number, match the data based on the customer number and retrieve the data. So how lookup works is, this is very important. Lookup, whenever it finds the matching record, means based on the condition, whenever this finds the matching record, whenever this finds a matching record, it returns the value. Like based on the condition, it returns the value, and whenever it doesn't find some matching record. So basically, whenever no match found, then it returns the null value. So it's just like a query. See, there is a department table, and in the department table you have a department ID 10. So when you query it, select star from departments where department ID is equal to 10, it will give you all the attributes of the department 10. Now, when you say that some 99 department which is not present, when you go and query the department table, it returns a blank rows. I mean, it didn't find any matching record, so it returns a blank rows. So here, instead of whenever there's no match found, it returns a null value for all the attributes. So this is how we can understand about the lookup transformation. See, basically, since it doesn't return the matching record whenever it is there. So if you look at your joiner, so we have actually replaced that with a normal join, master outer join and all. So whenever you see the lookup transformation in the mapping, or whenever you find that lookup is available, always you have to replace that lookup with a left outer join, because from the source, whatever the attributes that you have brought, that will appear, but whenever it doesn't find a matching record, it returns a null value. See, sometimes what developers also do is that whenever it returns a null value, they can also provide a default value here, whatever the default value. So whenever it is null, that null value will be replaced with a default value. So if you have such kind of a default value details, that they'll be mentioning in the data mapping sheet. So looking at the data mapping sheet, suppose here you have a customer name which is there. So they'll write the condition here saying that NVL of customer, or they'll write saying that if the customer name is null, then replace it by 0, or I mean not 0, not applicable, or something like that. So they'll mention the condition. So based on the condition, you have to convert your query, right? So we'll understand more about the lookup transformation, and also if you see, they'll also mention the source qualifier query. Basically, in this data mapping sheet, there is no source qualifier query. Most of the times, in most of the mappings, they use a source qualifier to filter the data at the source level. So always you need to first understand what source query has been used. If at all, if it is not present, then you can look at the workflow completion and then do that. So this is a general mapping, which it is reading the data. I mean, they're actually reading the customer numbers from it. So if you look at it, there is a, there is a source qualifier query, and after fetching the customer number, they're actually matching the data in the customer table. So let's try to run this and then verify that the workflow data is available, then proceed with the functional testing. So we'll understand also more about lookup. So let me just run the workflow and show you how it's taking time here. Bear for a minute. Yeah, let's verify the workflow completion and go ahead. And I don't know, so for some reason it is taking a long time. Not sure. Okay, let me open another instance. I'm not sure. Okay. So if you look at this, we are actually looking and loading the data into ODS customer active. See, basically you also need to know whenever there is a lookup transformation created on the table. So you need to understand where the table is available. So that should be, you should know it when you're doing it. So I think this, we are good with this. So let me run the workflow now. So get the previous ones and let me go to the workflow. This is ODS customer active. So you can verify, see, whenever you want to understand like how, what columns are being retrieved from the lookup and all, always you can also refer the session log also. So from the session log also you'll understand what is the source query that is being used to retrieve the data from the source and what is a lookup query that is used to match the data. So this is your lookup query. So if you look at it, this is a lookup query which is fired by your integration service, that Informatica, to read the data. Now, if you look at it, this is a source query. So in case if you want to understand like what source query is being used, always you can refer the session log and then identify. So if at all the details are not available or something, you can always do that. Okay. So now it's succeeded. So how many records are loaded and all? 28 records were there in the source and 28 out of 28 have been loaded. 0 failed rows and 0 target failed rows are 0 and everything. And even you can go for a source target statistics and then see that. And you can also verify the workflow log. Basically, verifying the workflow log will give you the details about whether the email task is failed while sending and all those things will be recorded over here. But anyway, this task, we haven't, we don't have any email task which is configured. And then, so let's start validating the data for it. So we need to prepare a source query. So assume that the source query, what is being used in the source qualifier query, that I'll take it directly. So they have some filter conditions to read the data from invoice table about the customer number. So basically, they'll provide you all these details in the data mapping sheet. So this is an old template which I'm actually referring. And in the new template, whatever the ETL spec clone and all, whichever I have shown you, that it will show you. So, and it will be there. So when you look at this one, select distinct invoice number from this. So whenever you use that, whenever you have a lookup, so as I said, you need to always replace that with a left outer join. So this used with the left outer join. And what is the lookup query that is being used? So you have that query directly here, what is present. So basically this is a query and lookup customer name and all. So just replace that with that query. So this is like a lookup. So wherein you're actually fetching the customer name, customer, everything. So what is the condition between the source qualifier and the lookup? That you can get it from the lookup condition. So they'll provide you the lookup condition. Condition is going to be the customer ID is equal to customer number. So if you create a condition so that it is equal to sq dot, let's say this you're aliasing that as a customer number, and sq dot customer number is equal to lkp dot customer id, lkp dot customer id in using this. So if you look at the select from, so what are all of the values actually that you are fetching? So if at all there are some default values which are being used, then you can convert them by using a NVL function in the main query. So what is the details that they are fetching? So they're actually fetching the customer name, first contact, and all those. So that you can mention it as lkp dot customer name. So that will give you the name of the customer. lkp dot first contact, that will give you the name of the this one. So lkp dot customer state. So in case, let's say if they are using any default values, so you can just use a null NVL function, but here in this case they're not using. Let's say even if they're using any default value for it, you have to use a null values for a connected lookup. I mean, that can be replaced with a default value, something like this. And you have a customer state, let's say lkp dot customer chip, and customer state and customer chip. So you have the next one is your customer type, lkp dot discount rate. So these are all the customer name, customer first contact, customer state, customer chip, customer type, and all which you have. So try to execute this, see whether it is syntactically correct or not. Okay, it's saying table of view does not exist because your SD customer table is available in the this one. If at all it is available in the different database, then use the DB link and then get that. So now let me just run the query again. Let us throw the definite error. Okay, the invoice table is also available in the so now this is returning the data, like the source query is returning the data. It's syntactically correct. Now let's try and validate the data for this. So this is a complete source query and it is returning the data. It's a very simple example. It's just that we have one source and then the lookup, and from the lookup we are fetching all the attributes. So let me just verify the count validation and everything. See, we already have a data present in the target table. We have loaded it and we have verified the workflow completion as well. So I'm actually jumping that into, I'm jumping directly into the functional testing part to verify the count validation and everything. So we have a data present in the target table. So let me run the query. So that is your count validation. So first thing is to write, so select count of star from, so whatever the source query that we have prepared, we are going to use that source query and identify the count of it. So this is a source query and paste it. Let me execute this. If you go, so this is looks bigger query, and execute it. So there are total 28 records present in the source. So what would be there in the target? So select count of star from, let's say, your ODS customer active. So try and execute this. So this should return 28 records. Right, fine. So now you have 28 out of 28, which is there. So the next one is about the duplicate records. Duplicate records. So your target table, like what are the columns? Customer ID, customer name, and everything. So let's quickly write the column names: customer ID and cust name. And you have a first contact, customer state, first contact, customer state, customer zip, and customer type. Customer state, cust name, customer zip, customer. Customer type, and the discount rate what you have. So what are the total number of records which are available from target table is ODS customer active. So you need to group the data based on all these columns. Group by the customer ID. So let me just get the having count of star greater than 1. So try to execute this and find out. So there are no duplicate records in using this. So that completes your duplicate level. And use a column level data validation. So when you look at the column level data validation, it's just the minus query that you have to run. So let me just first get the source query what you have. So this is your source query. Minus. So you need to make sure that when you're writing, make sure that you're actually using the column names correctly in doing it. So let me just take this one. First one is customer ID, customer name, first contact, customer ID. ID you don't have actually. Customer name, it is actually starting from customer name and first contact and all. Customer name, first contact, customer state, zip, and then the count of this. So we have customer name, first contact, customer state, zip, customer type, and the discount rate. So let me just use this and run the query. So we don't have any mismatches between the source and target, like how the mismatches between the source and target at the column level. So that's how you can run the minus query as well. And the next one is about the null validation and referential integrity. So let me just try and check for a couple of columns and show you the same process again. And this is your customer name, and you have a column name, and you have the count of star from ODS customer active, where customer name is null, and similarly maybe for customer type and all. Need to write for all the columns. So basically why we are using a union all is that we can actually verify these things in a single query instead of writing and executing the multiple queries. So you can basically try and execute this. So okay, maybe for customer type you have one as a null value. Customer type, there is one null value. So let's try and verify whether it is null only in the target or it is null in the source as well. So I need to fire a similar kind of a query to understand. So let me get for what column it has, for what record it has a null customer star. So for 111, customer number 111 has this data. So let me query from the source as well and customer table. So this is basically brought from the customer where sdbu.customer. We have to give sdbu.customer. I'm actually basically checking whether it has a null in the source or is it because of, and where customer ID is equal to 111. Try and execute. See, yes, there is a customer type is null, so no issues. Like if the varchar column is null, then we can actually ignore it in case of a fact tables. But if the measurable column is null, even though it is null in the source, that value should be replaced by the appropriate value in the target, maybe by 0 or by some default value they have to use and then replace it. So that's how you can verify the null value validation. And the next one is about the referential integrity. Referential integrity is not applicable in this case, and that's pretty much about the lookup, like how to validate the using minus query, duplicate records, count of records between that, and then the data model as well. So data model validation, again, you need to verify the column names as per the data model, as well as the constraints as per the data model, and the data types as per the data model. All those things we have to verify by looking at the data model, data types, and all those things. So this is how, this is the more about the lookup. See, basically we have some challenges in the lookups. So what happens is that whenever it matches the data based on the condition, if there is a multiple match based on your condition, so something like this, let me show you. So we have a customer 100, let's say you have Sachin, and 101 you have something like this, and again you have 100, this is like something like a Tendulkar. So when you write a query in this, so if you match the data based on the customer ID, it will return 2 records, isn't it? But which record it will return? So if you use a left outer join, it will bring both of the records, but the lookup is not like that. Lookup will fetch only one value. That depends upon the property that they have selected here. Okay. So when you say lookup policy on multiple match, it says that use any value means it picks up the random value, right? It picks up the random value and then do it. Suppose there are other alternative values here which they can check. One is use first value, use last value, something like this. So in that case, what you have to do is you need to write a rank function to get the appropriate value. So you need to write a rank function. I'll show you that example. See, basically, let's say if you have a customer ID is a multiple values, and out of this I have to fetch the first value. So you need to write a query, lookup query, something like this. I'm just showing you a lookup query, not the complete, not the complete source qualifier query. So when you say that when you have a multiple match. This is applicable. I mean, when you find that there are multiple records for the same condition, then you need to go by this one. When you are referring it, so basically if you need a customer ID and let's say the customer name and maybe the customer type and all those, you can bring it up. Okay, cust type or customer type. Let me just check it out. I think it is customer type. Okay, customer type, cust name and all. So when there is a multiple match, you need to use a rank function and fetch the appropriate function. So how do you write, let's say, rank over partition by, and you're basically partitioning based on the customer ID. I mean, grouping the data based on the customer ID. So assume that you're ordering the data by using particular column. Let's say maybe based on the customer name or customer type or whatever. So you use some column, customer name, ordered by customer name. So let me just break this into line below. So this will give you the rank of the customer. So basically if you have a multiple values, but in this case you have only one value. So for every customer, when you do it based on the customer ID, it will give you the rank 1. Okay. So out of this value, so when they are fetching the first value, you are already used order by customer name. By default it is ascending. If you want to do it in the descending, you can do that. And you need to write a source qualifier, you need to write a lookup query. So what and all are the columns that you're fetching? You can bring all the columns, and at the same time it has to bring only one value, right? So you need to use the function as where rank equal to 1. So if it is equal to 2, I want only one record. So in this scenario, you will be able to get only one value from the lookup. So this is little challenging query that you have to write. So most of the cases when you go to the real time, so they'll have multiple matches for a same condition. So in that case, the way how the Informatica is behaving, you need to write a similar type of a query. So if you use a left outer join, it basically gives you all the records present in the lookup, which increases the number of rows in the source, But you need to handle that by using a rank function and make sure that your lookup query is returning only one record for one match, not more than one record. If it is returning more than one record, then you can replace directly by the left outer join. So, but most of the times when you say, okay, let me just check this out. Okay, most of the time when you say the lookup will return only one record in case from the latest latest versions onwards, you can also configure this as a return all the values whenever there is a multiple match. There is a condition also for it. Okay, let me just show you how that condition looks like. I'm just showing you to. So there is an option here, and when you import it, now go and check that lookup policy on multiple match. So this says that use all the values. If you have a lookup which is created in the Informatica to return all the values, then yes, you can just replace that by the left outer join and then use it. You can replace it by the left outer join and then use it. In case if it is not used as a use all the values, then you need to write a rank function to fetch only one value whenever there is a multiple match. So basically the same query has to be replaced in the lookup. Here, if you see, you have written a query here, right? So what it will do, whenever there is a left outer join, it will give all the records whichever is matched. So basically this query has to be replaced by that rank query appropriate. In that case, you'll be able to match the data. Otherwise, the count validation doesn't work. And even the minus query validation, there may be a difference when you are validating the data. So that is how you can define it. And there are some more things which we have to understand about the lookup. So that is by using the lookup caches. So basically they might check you in the interview, but as a tester you don't need to know how for a tester it doesn't make much difference when you're actually testing the functionality wise. But they might ask you in the interviews like what kind of caches and all. So there is three types of lookup caches. One is a static cache, and another is dynamic cache, and next one is persistent cache. Persistent cache, which it is there. So if you look at the static, so you can just say that cache files created on the server will not get updated during the session run. It actually matches the data by storing the data in the cache files within the server. So it will not get updated during the session run. During the session run, it doesn't get updated. And if you look at the dynamic cache files, cache files will get updated. So whatever is created gets updated, will get updated during the session run. And persistent cache means in both the cases, in case of a static as well as a dynamic, cache files will be deleted after the session is completed, will be deleted. Cache files will be deleted even in case of a dynamic cache. But in case of a persistent cache, cache files will be stored permanently on the hard disk. Permanently on the hard disk. It's just that you remember it. Most of the people may not ask, but what type of caches that you have, lookup cache, and all those things which you can verify that. So this is pretty much about the lookup. That is, we have seen only one type of a lookup, that is connected lookup. Connected means which is connected to one and another transformation we are directly passing. So if you look at the another type of a lookup, let's say ODS underscore line item. In this also we have a lookup. So let me just arrange iconically. So if you look at it, this is also a lookup transformation, which it is there, but it is not connected to any of the transformation. This type of a lookup is called as an unconnected lookup, and the one which we have seen now, that is your connected lookup, because you're passing the input and then doing it. So the difference is that, yeah, in this you can use a default value, there you cannot use a default value. So that is about the lookup transformation. How can you match the data? Okay, so this kind of a transformations, you will see them, most of the mappings in the real time will have a lookup transformation. So we need to be we will be using this very regularly in our practice and all, executing that test cases. Okay, so ODS customer active. Okay, that's it I have about the connected lookup, and in case if you have anything to add on here, you can go ahead, we'll discuss about it.
Hey Karthik, I just one doubt. Like you said that whenever we are using a lookup, it's always left outer join. Can you please repeat? Is it always left outer join?
See, what happens is that if you are using an inner join, basically lookup will return the data only whenever there is a matching. Now, here is a condition. I want to retrieve all the source records irrespective of whether the record is present in the customer table or not, right? So when you want, if you take an example of employees, departments and the employees. So let's say you have a department and you're having the employee, let's write it in a different way. Okay, let's take a simple example. Okay, you have an employee table and you're matching the department, you're matching the employee department in the department table and writing the data. So now my condition is that irrespective of whether the employee is assigned with the department or not assigned with the department, I have to get all the data. So how will you get that? That's based upon the left outer join. So basically what I'm trying to get here is that it has to give me all the invoice customer details irrespective of whether it is available in the customer table or not. So that's why we go for always a left outer join. So when I say that condition, right, so when you go, whenever it finds a matching record, it will return a value. Whenever it doesn't find a matching record, it returns a null value. That means whenever it doesn't have a record, it is returning a null value. So if you use an inner join, it will filter the data. It will filter basically the source data. So I don't want the source data to get filtered based on the join condition whenever it doesn't find some magic record. So that is the reason we replace it by the left outer join. If it is present, it will give the records from the lookup. If it is not present, it will give the records from the source itself. That's how it works. That is the reason we have to replace that always by the left outer join.
Okay. Thank you, Karthik. Got it.
Right. That's it I have probably, and we have even 10 more minutes of time in case if you have any questions with the previous examples or something, we can discuss about it, and we may not be able to start with the next example now. So probably in the next Monday class, we'll talk about how to use unconnected lookup, and we'll move on with some slowly changing dimension tables, how to do the SED type 1 testing and all those we'll discuss. Right. Thank you. That's it I have.